G'day trendsetters, welcome to the next enthralling episode of Ask the Gravel Cyclist Crew a Question. The first question is, what is one of the funniest things you've ever heard on a gravel bike ride? Now, I've done many gravel bike rides and races, and I really wanted to share this question with a couple of my illustrious teammates from the Gravel Cyclist Crew, namely K-Dog and Dr. Payne, and we got a few answers for you as follows. So jumping that fence is totally fine, but let the foreigners go first. That's real nice. I'm not attacking, I'm just going up the road to check on K-Dog. I'm only leading through the sugar sand to show you the best line. K-Dog is an excellent descender. Jom is a hard man. K-Dog and Jom can really sing. Take me home, country road, to the place that I belong. During one cold night, I heard, it's like trying to find a Vienna sausage in a large salad. This one came from Mrs. K-Dog, directed at K-Dog himself actually, and it was, oh shut up. If it wasn't for me, you'd be soft. Winning a preem during a criterium over a wheel sucker by yelling, car back. And these are a couple of excuses I've heard for blowing off a training ride. I left my legs behind at the charity ride. I'm not showing because there are green blobs on the radar. I have to go to church to please my effing mother-in-law. My local mechanic is putting new spooge into the tyres and the shop doesn't open until 10. I had a deep tissue massage last night. This gravel route features some deep sand and all I have is a straight block. This question comes to us from Bruce of Twin Cities in Minnesota, the Twin Cities being St. Paul and Minneapolis. He writes, John, what are your thoughts on super compact 46/30 cranksets? Is it possible to get these to work on a carbon framed bike with a braze-on front derailleur mount originally sized for a 50/34 compact crankset? Bruce, that's definitely going to depend on whether your derailleur, your front derailleur, can move down enough in order to, I guess, work and successfully shift the chain from the small chainring to the big chainring. So if you've got space to move the front derailleur, yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. Now, my thoughts on those cranksets, I love those cranksets. See the bike behind me, the Orbea Terra? That's the bike I rode at this year's Dirty Kansas, and it is fitted with an FSA K-Lite 46/30 crankset. I was all over that 32 low gear when I was climbing a hill along the course known as the Biotch. Other guys were walking and I was riding, so right there, genius. I also rode a 46/30 setup at the recent Almanzo 100 in Minnesota. It was superb there. And I've also ridden it in the Taiwan King of the Mountain Challenge over in Taiwan. Honestly, that crankset is really now my go-to crankset. You can scale pretty much any nasty climb with it, and it's one I really think that a lot of us gravel cyclist types should consider. Even on the flatter roads, I mean, okay, you won't really maybe use the 30 too much, but it's a really handy chainring to have, and you can always pair it with, say, a 1125 cassette if you didn't want to go crazy low. Thanks for the question. Got a question here from Mark, or Mark, as you Americanos would say, and he's from Maine. And his question is, so I'm in the process of upgrading wheels on my Specialized Crux. I mostly use the bike for gravel grinders here in New England, but I'm thinking of Dirty Kansas next year. You have a review of the American Classic MTB Race, but I also see Argent, the American Classic Argent wheel set of some of your bikes on the gravelcyclist.com website, along with the Stans Grail and Zipp 30 course. Which of these do you recommend, and any advice on how to make a decision? Mark, the biggest factor is how much money do you want to spend, because the prices on all those wheel sets vary. So that's your first factor, your budget, and then your riding style. Some people are very light on wheels, and also your body weight's going to factor into that as well. And you know, these wheel sets, like some are certainly more durable than others, so those are other factors you need to consider. So if you really like, you could drop me a line at the website and I'll be more than happy to answer your question in greater detail. Thank you. This question comes to us from Steve of Gainesville, Florida. And he writes, I'm considering building a new gravel bike and have been looking at Rolhloff hubs. He means the 14-speed internally geared hub, by the way, trendsetters. But he's got no experience with them, nor do I actually. Any thoughts regarding this setup versus a standard derailleur rig? He's thinking about rear derailleurs being torn off in mud, etc. Steve, I can't really speak about the Rolhloff, but I've got a friend who rides the Alpine Di2, which is internally geared and an 11-speed hub with, obviously, electronic shifting. It's pretty sweet. Now, he doesn't ride in gnarly conditions, but there is a bloke in the UK, and I might link his video below. This guy commutes pretty much exclusively on Alpine Di2 in some disgusting conditions. So, you know, it could be the perfect setup almost for nasty mud, but I guess I have to wonder how well sealed is the hub itself. And don't forget tyre clearance. I mean, that's still a big issue, even if you've got a seemingly unbreakable system that resembles a single-speed bike but has internal gears. So I might have to do a little bit of investigation into this, and you know, if the stars aligned and I had a lot of money, it'd be great to build such a bike and as a concept and see how it goes. But thanks for your question, Steve. That's a good one. This question is from Robert of Nashville, Michigan. He writes, hi there. Being relatively new at gravel grinding and racing, and currently only averaging around 18 mile an hour on hilly courses, that's a pretty good average, dude. I'm wondering how much time most of you spend on the small chainring. When I started gravel riding, I thought I should be in the big ring whenever I could, but I've learned the small ring actually improves my average speeds. I realise road conditions govern this greatly, but I'm wondering what is the norm. It seems I do my best between 100 to 110 cadence. Is this because I'm not yet seasoned on the bike? I'm also 57 years of age. Well, Robert, your age has nothing to do with it, but if you're averaging 18 mile an hour on hilly gravel courses, man, I wouldn't change anything. Whatever you're doing is working. I mean, some people like to spin up climbs, that's me, for example, and I know plenty of other guys and girls who ride huge gears. You have to do whatever works for you, and in your case, it's working, so keep at it. Thanks for the question. This question comes from a bloke calling himself K-Dog Wannabe. Oh boy. And he writes, well, he's from Canada, supposedly. I don't believe that for a minute. If you go to the mud bog races in the southern US, he's referring to some of the disgusting races I've ridden this year in horrible conditions. You will see that these rigs use skinny tyres with deep tread for running through watery mud. The idea seems to be that a skinny tyre cuts through the mud down to something more solid beneath the muddy surface. Do you reckon that's what is needed for these mudfests on bikes? That's a good question. You know, I've been running in some of the muddy races, the Panaracer Gravel King mud tyre, which is measuring 700 by 35, which some might consider as a pretty narrow tyre. It measures a tad under 35 actually, depending on the rim. And it's been fantastic in some of these muddy races. So yes, I think the cut-through factor is definite. That definitely works. But also having a bike that can clear mud. So what I'm saying is a bike with plenty of tyre clearance. Because sometimes even the best mud-specific tyre can pack up a little bit, and obviously that can then lead to the frame packing up, which can ultimately lead to disaster, breaking a derailleur, breaking a hanger. So yeah, there's definitely some merit to some of these narrower tyres. In fact, I've got some, well, not necessarily narrower tyres, but some more mud-specific tyres on the way for review very soon from our friends at WTB. Stay tuned on that. This question comes to us from an anonymous person, and they write, John, if you're out on a ride far from any public restroom or petrol station, and you really badly need to use the loo, what do you use for toilet paper or poo tickets? Poo tickets are what we Aussies refer to for toilet paper. So it's a good question, and I've actually been in this situation one time during a race in North Carolina. I'll spare you the really gory details, but if you notice the bicycle behind me, it has two bottle cages, and most bikes have that. So I often keep one bottle on my bike with water, and thankfully I did this day because I used that second water bottle to form a roadside bidet. I was off the road obviously, but a roadside bidet. It was very cleansing and refreshing, and it definitely beat the heck out of using some leaves to wipe my bum. So that's what I suggest. Use one of your water bottles, but whatever you do, just hope that it's not filled with hydration mix, because that could be a really sticky mess.
Traveling in a fried out car.